Talk with Tigo. Guess what? I'm Tigo. And I guess you're probably wondering, what the heck is Expert Talk and what's a Tigo? Let me start there. My real name is Teresa Goss. Get it? T-Go. Yeah, a friend of mine gave me that nickname years ago. We won't get into it. And Expert Talk is just that, me sitting down with experts from all over the world talking about their journey, where they are now, where they're going, and how they got there, and how they're taking the next levels. Wouldn't it be great if you could be looking over the shoulder of the expert in your field that could help you navigate the trail? Well, now you can, right here on Expert Talk. So if you're an expert and want to be a guest, we're going to show you how. Maybe there's a link right here to tell you where to go and apply to be a guest. Or if you're a solopreneur and think you're doing it all by yourself, not anymore. But for right now, we're going to get into our first interview. And our first interview is all about nonprofits. So if you've ever wanted to start a nonprofit, expand your nonprofit, or you don't even know how nonprofits work, you've come to the right place. Our first guest, Mr. André Wade. So sit right there. We'll be right back. Welcome, André. I'm so glad you're here.
Thanks for having me.
We have been talking for like 1,000 years,
yes,
okay, maybe 2, about getting you to come on a show. Secretly, I really want him to have his own show, but we'll get into that later. You watched this valley grow.
I really have.
So I got to ask, because I'm from Chicago, South Side, and, you know, it's 3 million black people in Chicago. So being a black man, growing up in Las Vegas, even now we're only 10%, I think. A little bit more, a little less, of the valley. What was that like, being an African-American male growing up in Las Vegas, in this growth town?
You know, it's a good question. So my parents are from the South. They came here separately, part of the last wave of the Great Migration. My mom from Louisiana when she was about 16. My dad was probably in his early 20s, but he came from Arkansas, and they met out here. And so my relatives grew up in Wrigley Estates and Winslow Park. That's where my grandmother lived, in these predominantly black neighborhoods. And so our neighborhood was mixed. And so I had kids I was growing up with who were not only black, but they were white and they were Mexican. They identified as Jewish. And we had some kids that were mixed with Asian. And so it was just this melting pot.
Wow.
And so I used my grandmother's address, who lived in Winslow Park, to go to school, which were with primarily white kids. And so my experience growing up was with a lot of white kids. So I would be the only like black kid in the class, or one of 2. And that's just been my experience throughout my life. And so, you know, you go into a room, you kind of see who else is, you know, looks like you, and like, okay, I'm the only one, or something like that. But it's just something that was always the case.
You are truly a leader. I mean, you truly do. Not only, you know, my parents, your parents, I'm sure did it too, said, don't forget where you come from.
Oh, for sure.
Make sure you reach back and help everybody else. And you take that 10,000 steps past that. Every time I look on social media, you're doing something with some organization or some group, or we'll get into Cindy Lauper, all that.
Okay.
But you really do take that to a whole new level. Do you think that foundation came from your family, or just being in Las Vegas because we're growing like crazy and you have such a melting pot history?
I think it definitely came from my family. So I'm one of the youngest of all the kids. And so I think that foundation just gave me a good sense of who I was. But I also experienced bullying in school that really shaped who I am today, which was the cause for me wanting to help others. So because of the bullying that I experienced through school, I dedicated my life to helping others. And at the time, I didn't know what that meant. I just knew I wanted to help people. I didn't want people to feel alone, or that they didn't have someone to talk to.
Why were they bullying you? Just because?
Because they either thought I was gay or perceived to be gay, name calling. Because just, if you're different at any point of your life, you're going to be targeted. And so I was targeted because I was just a little different.
Right.
So I spent a lot of my summers in junior high school just watching music videos and watching TV, like, by myself. And there's another story which really got me to love music, but that was my experience, I think, in formidable years, again, that just really shaped who I am today.
So my question is, my dad used to say, don't let the streets get you. Whenever I go out, he said, okay, now, you go out there, you come back the child you were when you left. Don't let the streets get you. So when I hear your story, what kept you from the streets, quote unquote, getting you so that you could keep pursuing and becoming the man that you are today?
Well, unfortunately, the streets got some of my cousins and some of the friends I went to church with, and even my brother. My brother was murdered.
Oh, no.
When he was, I guess, 27 or 26. And so I always was told to not go down that path because my cousins were going down that path and eventually my brother. So we're completely different anyway. I was more the student and the nerd, and my brother was, more wanted to get into a rougher life. But my parents just warned me to not go down that path, and I saw the dangers of it and wasn't interested in it anyway, but that definitely kept me out of that mix.
Well, I mean, with your education, with your background, you could have picked anything. I mean, you said you played sports,
Yep.
but you could have picked anything you wanted to do. What made you stick to, because, as an entrepreneur, as a business leader, you could always, in your spare time, go and help a nonprofit. But you've truly dedicated your career to being not only helping nonprofits, helping communities, but literally building them. What made you decide to do that?
It just goes back to that wanting to help others.
You're a trailblazer. I mean, let's just put it out there. You are. And there's a lot of people out there that want to be trailblazers. They got great ideas. And people are telling them, their closest friends, their family, the news, especially social media, you can't. You're not big enough. You're not smart enough. You don't have enough connections. You don't have enough money. Forget it. You cannot do this. But a lot of people are doing it. You're a perfect example of somebody who has done it and continues to do it. How? How did you do it? How did you, when you hit that brick wall, because I know you've hit 1,000 of them over your time, okay?
Yes.
How did you say, okay, I got you, and go over it, under it, around it, and keep going? How?
I think that I've always wanted to make sure I didn't disappoint myself. I always wanted to make sure if I look back on my life that I didn't want to have any regrets. But it's just really just having that vision and wanting to see out the vision and not wanting to disappoint myself and not really wanting to disappoint my community. Now I think a lot larger than myself and see a lot that needs to be done. And so, I just sometimes just want to do things on my own, or I just want to do things with other people who have other ideas and just kind of like, well, how can I help? And that's just like how I am. Like, how can I help? What kind of small role can I play?
How do you choose? What do you say yes to? What do you say no to?
Nowadays it's bandwidth. And I just know that I can't engage because I won't be able to give my all, or it's just going to put that much more pressure on my schedule or my to-do list. That's unnecessary. It's not going to benefit anyone. And so the ability to say no is really coming from like a smart place.
I don't care how much education, how much money, you still are human. You cannot do everything for everybody. You just can't.
And I'm still one of those people that wears themselves out doing their own thing and then trying to help others. I have some, emails in my inbox and some things on my instant messenger that people have some requests I need to get to, and I don't mind. But at some point we just have to have a balance.
Okay, so now we got to tell them, because this show is called Expert Talk.
Okay.
You are our nonprofit expert. Okay.
Which is scary.
Which is scary, but you know this. You've been doing this for a little bit. Can you give us just a little bit of your history of what you've done in the nonprofit arena?
Sure. Yeah, I've worked in nonprofits in the public sector for 20 years in the helping industry, so human services. And so I've worked in group homes, done, as I mentioned earlier, like wraparound services. I worked at our LGBTQ center out here in Southern Nevada. And so...
He was executive director. He's being modest. He worked in. Go ahead.
Executive director there for... and then also I studied public administration with a concentration in nonprofits. And for UNLV continuing education, one time I taught a nonprofit management class that help people to get the nuts and bolts on how to start and run a nonprofit. And so have a sense of what it's like to work in a nonprofit, raise money for a nonprofit, run a nonprofit, but then some of the nuts and bolts about starting one.
Can one person start a nonprofit?
One person can start a nonprofit, and depending on where you live, there's different requirements for how many board members need to be a part of your board. And so everyone needs to check their state to see what that is.
And where do they go to check that information?
For their Secretary of State. So people will have to apply for their to be a nonprofit within their state and get a tax ID, then also get your federal tax ID. And so we always have to remember that a nonprofit is still a business. The only differentiation is the taxes.
Is there any area that sticks out in your mind that you say, wow, I wish somebody would go after this particular area? Is there anything like that sticks out in your mind?
Yeah, even though that there's thousands of nonprofits in Nevada, some people say that there's too many. I think if people do a environmental scan to see how many nonprofits exist for the type of work they want to do, that'll give them a sense of what the quote-unquote competition is. I always think that there's a lot more space for LGBTQ services, and even looking at Black and Latino services across the board, like focusing on those populations. There could be a lot more in these areas.
What would be your first 5 things you would tell somebody to do before they do anything else?
I would first determine what it is that I want to do and why. So let's say you want to feed the homeless, let's say that. Then it's easy for us to say, well, there's no one feeding the homeless. We should start a nonprofit, because that's just what we think. But we should go from thinking to knowing, and then just finding out like how many people are actually serving people that are experiencing homelessness.
So use a little thing called Google and do your research.
Google, do your research, because then you want to find out, well, how are they and how often and what locations. So then you can find out, does it match what you wanted to do? Is there some sort of overlap? So if you find out that, okay, no one's actually not doing what it is you think needs to be done, then that's where I think you can start figuring out like a business plan. You want to find out like how you want to be structured. That's where your bylaws come in. But I think identifying also like who's going to be on your board. Often we go to our family and our friends, and that's great as a startup. But as you grow, you want to have people who have expertise to come to the table to help you out, have fundraising experience. But then you also want to have that fundraising plan in place. Like, how are you going to get money in the door in a sustainable way to make sure that you can continuously serve people that are experiencing homelessness, and it's not coming out of your pocket all the time.
Well, that's awesome. I don't know. I learned a lot. Did y'all learn a lot? Well, yeah, you did. Okay. So I want to thank you for coming to hang out with us. I want to thank you for all your information. And finally, 2 years
yes, I know.
got you here. And I hope you'll come back, because you are this just wealth of knowledge. And we just hit maybe the peak.
Yeah,
we got a whole mountain to dig into here.
There's a lot more.
There's a lot more. And, you know, you're the man.
Thank you very much.
Thank
I'm glad
you
we
so
finally
much.
got here.
Thank you so much for being with us.
You're welcome.
Stay right there, because after the break, we have Mr. Matt Annecharico. Matt Annecharico. He has been in entertainment all of his life, since pretty much diapers. And we're going to get into the record industry. We're going to get into music, acting, songwriting, all of it. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's talk to Matt. Hey, Matt, what's happening?
Not much. How are you?
I'm good. I am good. So first, before we get too far into this, because I don't want people to think we're just like met each other on the street and I drug you in here.
Right.
We're pretty much family.
We are.
You are my musical son. I tell everybody you're my musical son. And you came across the pond for this wonderful interview.
It was a long swim, you know?
Yeah.
I tried in a raft, it didn't work. So I had to swim the rest of the way.
Okay, I did say acting. I did not say comedy. Anyway, so Expert Talk.
Yes.
I wanted you to come over and be my first guest on Expert Talk.
I'm very flattered, honestly. Thank you.
And although I said 30 years, you're a minute over 30 years old. So
Yep.
you haven't been doing this for 30 years, but pretty close.
Pretty close, about 29,
29,
28, 29.
28,
Since I was
29.
3, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Literally in diapers.
Oh my gosh.
Of course, I didn't get out of diapers till about 13, so I was about 3 years old.
Again, we're doing the comedy thing. He's not very good at it. That's not what he's an expert at. But the point of Expert Talk is to help
Yeah.
others,
Yes.
because you and I both know it's a struggle out there.
Yes, it is.
When you're trying to get into a business, when you're trying to bring home your craft, when you're trying to get to that next level. And a lot of times, especially as a solopreneur,
Yeah.
you're doing this stuff on your own.
Yeah.
And although the, Google of the world, the
Yeah.
YouTube of the world is out there, if you don't know the right keywords to type in, you're still doing it. So before we get too far down here,
Yes.
what is your business? What do you do? Where are you located? Because I said across the pond.
Yes.
Let's talk about that first.
Yeah. So I started off as an actor, as you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Moved into music as a performer, as a songwriter and recording artist, and eventually found my way into the music business, the business side of things. So my kind of career, I look at me as the business, and then I have these kind of subsidiaries almost. I have music and acting and songwriting and my company that I started called Dreamscope Media Group. So that's kind of what I do in a nutshell.
So what is Dreamscope?
So Dreamscope Media Group started as a record label, but I intentionally called it Media Group because I wanted to take what I'd kind of done with my portfolio career and create a company that was a modern company in terms of production. So as a record label, we offer development deals to artists and really teach the artists about what it means to be in control as an artist, because I think with control, with ownership of your material, comes a lot of responsibility. And if you don't know what to do with that responsibility and with that control and with that ownership, then having that is not going to necessarily earn you anything financially. So teaching them how to actually then monetize that control and that ownership, and that's what the record label does. So it's great.
Wait. Okay, so record label. If you're in America, like Motown, right? So you sing or you play guitar, and then like you go to like Motown or one of the Epic or something,
Right.
and you make an appointment and you perform, and you're awesome, and then they give you a contract, and then you sign it, and they give you like a lot of money, and they create a record, and then you're a star, right?
That sounds wonderful. No,
No?
that's
not it.
It don't work like that.
So how does it work?
Today,
Yeah.
you have to be an artist or a band that has a huge following, and I'm talking thousands of followings on social media, especially is kind of the quickest way they check that. Huge following, decent sales even, which they can check on many different... Before you go there. You have to have the full package. Great recorded music, high quality recorded commercial music, maybe a couple music videos, great promo photos. You have to be essentially doing their job before they're willing to come in and do their job.
So then why do you need them?
Well, that's a very good question. And that's kind of where Dreamscope comes in, is, a lot of these artist services companies that have come up since, 2008, 2005 maybe, like to say that you don't need a record label anymore. You can be your own record label. You can do it on your own. And I believe that that's a bit misleading. I think that to some degree you don't need a record label. The rest of that sentence should be like you did 25 years ago.
Okay.
You need a record label because you need a team of people behind you who have spent years and years and years and thousands of dollars to gain the knowledge and experience that they have. You need a record label to help connect you to other people in the industry who could completely change the trajectory of your career. You need a record label for those kinds of things. You don't need a record label for production, unless, of course, you don't know production. But most people have the ability to pop open GarageBand and kind of do their own thing. So that's where I see the difference being. You don't need a record label the same way you did before.
How do you start? What do you do?
Right. So I think it's really important to first identify what that means. Identify what your long-term goals are. You know, when I have artists come in and say, right, you know, my music's ready for BBC. And I'm just thinking, well, if it's ready for it, why hadn't it been on BBC yet? You know, why are you sitting in front of me? You don't need me.
Standing there saying that.
Why are you sitting in front of me? Don't tell me that. You know, let's talk about some realistic, achievable goals first, and the BBC stuff will come later. You know, let's set some goals.
So is that what Dreamscope does? Do you navigate?
Yes.
For your clients?
Yes. I wouldn't even go so far as saying navigate.
Okay.
We advise.
Okay.
I like to make sure that the artists at all times, I believe they should be in control of the decision-making process, but I believe that they need to have smart, talented, knowledgeable, capable people around them to advise them. So that also means that the artist has to be able to take that advice on board, and hopefully the people giving that advice are able to say, you know, we could go down this route, but you know, this could be the outcome, or maybe we can go this way if we want to achieve this, but then 10 years later we could achieve this. I think it's really important that that conversation be open and be had, but the artist has to be receptive to that. I believe that that is the way a record label should behave with an artist, so that's what we do.
Okay, so for years I have always said, because I have a lot of friends and a lot of people I know, as you know,
Yeah.
in the entertainment industry that are everything from executives to, you know, local artists. But it just seems like this is the one career that especially artists give their talent and put it in somebody else's hands.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And then they wait. They sit and they wait for that person to make stuff happen. You know? Is that the way it has to happen?
Mm-hmm.
Can they make stuff happen on their own?
Mm-hmm.
Or do they have to have somebody make it happen for them?
Right. You know, look, we're living in a time where there is no reason why, and I think once you knock down those barriers, it's not a problem.
Now, what you're doing with Dreamscope, it's in London.
Yes.
You're in London.
Mm-hmm.
And you've been there for quite some time now. And you're very successful. You guys are growing and growing in massive leaps.
Yeah.
But you're in London.
Yeah.
Will that work over here?
Yeah. Yep. We, a good majority of our artists are international, actually. Okay. So, thanks to the internet, I mean, quite frankly.
That little thing called the internet?
That little thing called the internet. You know, there's video conferencing that is available. We have artists that are in Germany. We have artists that are in Singapore. We have artists that are in Malaysia. Artists that maybe are not in London, maybe they're, you know, a couple 100 miles away in England, and we work remotely.
Is image still a humongous part of the music industry?
Yes and no.
Okay.
It's becoming less important.
Okay.
And maybe less important is the wrong phrase. I think what's more important than how you look is how confident you are with yourself.
10, 12, 13, 14-year-old kid is looking right now.
Yeah.
Okay, and they want to sing. You know, I've heard stories so many times where I've heard major singers say, you know, nobody had ever heard me sing before.
Right.
I sang in my head for so long because I didn't have the confidence to actually go out there and sing.
Yeah.
Okay? So they want to sing. But they don't know GarageBand, and,
Right.
and you know, they don't even have a computer at home. They're using a computer at school.
Yeah.
And they don't have the confidence to go out there and sing.
Yeah.
You know, they're maybe being bullied in class. Who knows? You know, but they want to sing.
Yeah.
So where do they start, Matt? Where do they do?
You want to know what's interesting? Before anyone knew that I could sing, I was privately doing exactly what you were talking about, which is learning how, essentially. So I went and I just studied, and I still do, because I find it really interesting. That's what I did.
So now they could pretty much use their phones.
Yes.
Because almost every phone has a recorder on it, right?
Absolutely, yep.
So they could pretty much, that's a really cool tip.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I got another question for you.
Yep, bring it.
All
Let's see it.
right? I have a 13-year-old grandson.
Yes.
He's a basketball phenom, okay? But he can also sing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he really wants to be a singer.
Right.
I should probably ask him. But what if you have a grandchild or a child
Yeah.
that really has a talent,
Mm-hmm.
okay? You hear all these horror stories about the entertainment industry,
Mhm.
okay? And you see all this stuff on YouTube
Right.
and everywhere else,
Yeah.
but you want them to pursue their passion.
Yeah.
You want them to pursue their dream. How do I help them?
Mm-hmm.
How do I help her?
Mhm.
What do you do
Mhm.
as a parent?
So I would always encourage singing lessons. Yeah.
Okay. So what if, I have a couple of things. I think we should do maybe some masterminds, maybe some workshops, some
Sure.
webinars,
Yeah.
and we'll just dig in. But if somebody is offered a contract,
Yeah.
you know, what's 2 or 3 tips you would say before they sign?
Oh, okay. Go to a lawyer. Always.
Okay.
Go to a lawyer. The next piece of advice I would give is don't sign right away. Sleep on it. You know, sleep on it. Really, really think about it. Think about your future. Think about your goals and think about, am I truly ready? Do I know who I am? Am I comfortable with who I am?
Long story short, get your ducks in a row, as my dad
Yes.
used to say. Get your ducks in a row. Well, you know, this is Expert Talk. This is what Expert Talk is going to be all about. We're going to sit down. We're going to have a conversation. We're going to get into the minds of these experts and find out what they've done, why they've done it, what's next, and maybe it'll help you or your friend or your family member when they're making their plans. Maybe you feel a little stuck. Goodness knows I have felt stuck so many, many times before in my business and wished I had somebody I could call, talk to, or see a show like this and say, wow, yeah, call a lawyer.
Yeah.
You know, I probably wouldn't have known there was a such thing as a music lawyer. You know, call a lawyer or something like that. So this is Expert Talk. Thank you, Matt.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Hey, I'm Tigo. And as always, you know, I'll talk to you next time.